What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, and today we are going to have a great discussion on the offensive line. Once again, we're going to be discussing Nick Gates and the new offensive line, Jamil Douglas, that the Giants just signed. And I think the Giants have done a lot of low-key moves to try and fix their offensive line this offseason, and I think they're setting themselves up very nicely for the 2022 NFL Draft through free agency. So I'm really excited about that. I think Joe Schoen has done a phenomenal job, but as I have this discussion with you all, make sure you leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. And make sure to leave a like if you enjoy this video and subscribe if you're new, because we got tons of great New York Giants content covering trade rumors, signings, everything coming all off season long, and of course carrying into the exciting regular season. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into Jamil Douglas. So Jamil Douglas is 6'4", 310 pounds. He's got the ability to play both guard and center. So I think that's really valuable, and that's probably what the Giants were looking at. He also has a connection to the New York Giants current coaching staff. He was with the Buffalo Bills in 2021, so he's worked with Brian Daboll and our offensive line coach Bobby Johnson, and I'm assuming that's where this connection comes from. They probably worked with him last year, liked what he brought to the table, and decided he would be great to bring in as a backup. Now, that's exactly what I predict he will be. I don't ever expect to see Jamil Douglas start any games for the Giants unless we get into a really bad position with injuries, because Jamil Douglas has not really, he's only started 11 total games in his career, and he's been in the league since 2015. So he's been in the league for quite a while, but he's barely even sniffed the football field. So I don't expect him to start games for the Giants. I know that we're in a really bad spot with our offensive line, but we're not in that bad of a spot, okay? And the reason we're not in that bad of a spot is because we made some good signings already, right? John Feliciano expected to be the starting center at this point. Mark Lewinsky expected to be the starting right guard at this point. Those are both pretty good offensive linemen that will be going up, you know, as the starters ahead of a guy like Jamil Douglas, ahead of a guy like Matt Gono, the other guy that we signed earlier this offseason, former Falcons offensive lineman. So Jamil Douglas, like I said, 6'4", 310 pounds, was a fifth-round selection by the Dolphins in 2015. He's played in 50 regular season games, but he's only started in 11, and he started amongst a bunch of different teams: the Miami Dolphins, the Tennessee Titans, Buffalo Bills, and the Washington Commanders. So he also appeared in 4 postseason games with the Titans, so he's actually got some experience playing with a very good team, which I definitely think is important. I do prefer usually to sign players from good teams because they know what a good team looks like, and they know how to help implement a good culture in the locker room and help be a good leader. So Jamil Douglas having some experience going deep into a regular season on a winning team, you know, not being on a team that gives up after 10 weeks, right? Being in the hunt throughout the season, I definitely think that's important. So he's made 8 starts at right guard and 3 starts at center in his career. So that's very valuable for the Giants, because when we're taking a look at the second portion of this video, and we're going to discuss Nick Gates, it's going to be important for the Giants to have one of those guys as a backup that can fill into multiple positions, right? Because John Feliciano is a player that's also started at guard and center. Or actually, yeah, I think he started 1 or 2 games at center, but he's played guard and center, but primarily he's been a guard throughout his career. The Giants are planning to play him at center, though. Feliciano, obviously going to be a starter. He's a pretty good player. He's not top tier or anything, but he's definitely an average center that brings stability to the Giants offensive line. But what if he were to get injured? Who do they have to be that versatile positional guy, right? Who do they have to be that offensive lineman that can go from guard to center or center to guard? Now, we would say Nick Gates, but as we'll get into this on the second half of the season, we might not be able to expect that much of Nick Gates this upcoming season. We'll get into that second half of this video, rather. We might not be able to expect all that much from Nick Gates this upcoming season as he tries to work his way back from that gruesome leg injury. So taking a look at Jamil Douglas, I think it's important now that the Giants have a guy that's a backup that can move into multiple positions. Now, I believe Matt Gono is a guy that's played tackle and guard. I don't think he's ever moved all the way into center, but for Jamil Douglas being a primary guard that's moved to center, that's good as a backup developmental guy. He's, you know, not a rookie or a young guy by any means. He's been in the league since 2015, so he's got some years under his belt, but he's a player that I think, you know, could make an impact for the Giants as a solid backup. You know, he's just a good player all around who can contribute in a backup role, and that's what the Giants need. They don't have many backup offensive linemen on their roster right now. You take a look at this roster. They have Andrew Thomas at left tackle. I don't know what backup tackles they have other than Matt Parrott. I'm assuming they're going to draft a tackle in this year's draft. That's a safe assumption. Of course, Mark Lewinsky, John Feliciano, Jamil Douglas, Matt Gono. But who else do they have other than Nick Gates, who's injured? So, the Giants desperately needed depth on their roster. That's why they made this signing of Jamil Douglas. That's why it was important. Of course, the connection that he has to Brian Dable and Bobby Johnson is probably what got him this job. And I think that he'll probably be a solid backup for the Giants, but don't expect too much out of him. Don't expect to see him hit the regular season field at any point, but probably see him in the preseason. And hopefully he can develop into a decent backup for the Giants. Of course, this might set them up really well for the NFL draft, though, because the Giants have already signed 4 offensive linemen: Gono, Feliciano, Jamil Douglas, Mark Lewinsky. That's 4 offensive linemen that they've already signed. So by far, out of any position group, they've done the most work on their offensive line. So how many picks are they realistically going to spend on the offensive line in this year's upcoming NFL draft? Well, they could still do quite a bit of damage in that regard because, they've still got the right tackle position that they need to sort out. I don't think that they want to go into the 2022 season with Matt Peart as the starter at right tackle. So I'm assuming that they're going to make it their main priority to go ahead and draft a tackle in the first round. But you take a look at those middle rounds. Yeah, they've got Feliciano, they've got Lewinsky. That's probably your starting center and guard combo, but they can find probably a better, younger player to develop into one of those positions. And additionally, what about left guard? Are we really trusting Shane Lemieux, who's also coming off of an injury, might even still be dealing with that injury? Probably not. I don't think that we should be penciling in Shane Lemieux as the starter for the 2022 season. So for me, I expect the Giants to still be very aggressive in the NFL draft. They've been aggressive in free agency. They've gone ahead and signed 4 offensive linemen already, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them draft at least 3 offensive linemen in this year's upcoming NFL draft. I think there's still plenty of work that they need to do in that regard, whether they're going to get guys to develop behind Lewinsky and Feliciano, or if they're going to get guys to compete for starting positions with Lewinsky and Feliciano, whatever it might be. If they're trying to draft a day 1 starter at right tackle or at left guard, they're going to make some moves on the offensive line in the NFL draft. I don't think that this is anything that is going to hinder their ability to draft offensive linemen. I think if anything, it's just going to encourage them more to draft some offensive linemen, because they know now that if they draft a rookie and he struggles really badly as a rookie, they have some veterans who can step in and take over. So it's more of just insurance plans, very cheap contracts that they've given out to Gono, Feliciano, Douglas, and Lewinsky. They haven't spent too much money on these players. But what they've done by signing these players is given themselves flexibility and insurance. So if they go ahead and they start a rookie left guard day 1, and 4 weeks into the season, he's just atrocious, he's just not ready, he needs another season to develop, well, now they've got somebody to step in and take over for him in the meantime. And I think that's really important. So love what Joe Shane's doing on the offensive line. I think this is the smart approach, not the flashy approach. They didn't go out there and sign Connor Williams or any of those big name offensive linemen that went ahead and hit the market, but they signed their guys that they needed to develop this offensive line the right way and just bring some stability to the offensive line so that they can build through the draft. Very important. So last little tidbit on Jamil Douglas. He did play 388 snaps in the regular season in 2019. He allowed 3 sacks, so that's about 1 sack for every, I think, 75 snaps or something like that. So, that's decent. That's okay. Nothing too special there. Again, he's going to be a backup for the Giants. I don't see his role being anything greater, but I think that it's important to note that they signed another offensive lineman just as we continue to have the discussion on what will the Giants do in the 2022 NFL draft. But moving on to the second portion of this video, it's time to have a quick discussion about Nick Gates. So everybody loves Nick Gates. He's a phenomenal person. He's a good player. He's shown a lot of potential in this league in the past. Unfortunately, injuries have set him back. He had an injury his rookie season, came back, looked really good as a right tackle, then right guard, moved all the way into center, then moved all the way to left guard. I never understood quite why the Giants went ahead and moved him to guard again when he was playing well at center. In the 2021 season, they moved him to guard. I didn't agree with that. I thought in 2020 at center, that's where he was doing his best work. Really his best work came when he did play right guard in 2019 against the Dolphins. He had a really good game at right guard. That's probably the best game of his career. I wish that the Giants just continued to develop him in that position, and I understand why they didn't. They just ran out of depth. They had to move him around. He was a player that was willing to play anywhere, so they made him play anywhere, and that's unfortunate. That just shows the lack of depth that the Giants had on their offensive line, and I think it's important now that the Giants, you're seeing Joe Shane change that, getting a lot of depth on the offensive line so that they don't have to move players around like that. They can just play them in the positions that they're most comfortable. So for Nick Gates, we all know the story. I think it was week 2 of this regular season, 2021, goes down with a broken leg. Really gruesome injury. I mean, that bone snapped pretty good. It did not look pretty. And it's one of those injuries that there were whispers that it could be career-ending. It was that serious. Now, I don't think it will be career-ending. I think he's going to return to the football field at some point. But according to a new report from Giants Insider, they're hearing that Nick Gates had a little setback with a rod in his leg, and he is not expected to be on the field for quite a while. Don't expect to see the big guy this summer. So I think that's really important when you're taking a look at what the Giants are doing this offseason, getting a couple of interior offensive linemen with center and guard flexibility. I think they're preparing for life without Nick Gates for the start of this regular season. If we're not expected to see him in the summer, meaning no training camp, no preseason, it's going to be a while before he's ready. And when he is ready, he's not going to be in game shape. He might be ready to return to the playing field, but he's probably not going to be in game shape for the start of the regular season. And he might not even get into game shape until the end of the regular season at this point. You got to keep in mind, with a broken leg like that, or a torn ACL, or a torn Achilles, whatever it is, usually it's a full calendar year recovery. So for Nick Gates to make a full calendar year recovery, if he were to go 365 days, he would not be recovered until week 2 of this regular season. It's not like it was an injury that he suffered in preseason or anything like that. It is an injury that he suffered in the regular season, so it's going to take him a long time to recover. I don't expect him to have much of an impact on the Giants' plans in the draft. Actually, he shouldn't have an impact at all because they shouldn't even be expecting to see him on the field this regular season. I think, unfortunately for Nick Gates, was a captain, was a true leader, a guy that every Giants fan loved because he just had the right attitude and the right mindset, and he was really coachable according to the staff, and you could just see that in the way that he moved across the offensive line. It's unfortunate to say, but I don't think that he's going to be looked at as a starter by the new regime just due to his injuries, right? Again, good player. A starting level offensive lineman for sure, and the Giants need more of those, and they're making moves to get more of those. But at this point, with this injury, this recovery time is going to be a while. We can't expect to see Nick Gates take the field to start this regular season, and I think it's going to be quite some time before we see him get back out there. So it's really unfortunate to say, but that's kind of the update on Nick Gates. According to Giants Insider, he's had a little bit of a setback. They had Billy Price replace him last season. That didn't go well either. I don't think the Giants are going to bring Billy Price back this year. He did not play well for them after they traded for him in 2021. So looking ahead, I think if the Giants are planning on keeping Nick Gates around, it's going to be in a backup role from now on. They're just going to go ahead and move forward with the players that they've signed in free agency now, and hopefully look ahead to the 2022 NFL draft and find some starters there, because finding starters on the offensive line in the draft is the most important thing, and doing it outside of round 1. If you take a look at the stats, Daniel Jeremiah posted a great graphic a couple of weeks ago during the combine where he was showing that the majority of offensive linemen starting on Super Bowl teams, they are from the middle rounds or free agency. They are not from the first round of the 2022 NFL draft. So yes, it's very important for the Giants. They probably need to spend one of their first round picks this year on an offensive lineman, but they might not need to spend both of them on an offensive lineman. What they need to do is make sure that when they're drafting offensive linemen in those middle rounds, that they're drafting guys who can one day start at their positions. That is the important thing. Find good talents in those middle rounds, develop them into starters. That is huge for the Giants. It's the number one thing that Joe Schoen needs to fix here, in my opinion, in terms of building the roster. That's what it is. Find some starters in the middle rounds on the offensive line, and the Giants will be in much better shape because of it. So that's my take on Jamil Douglas, on Nick Gates, on the Giants offensive line, and the way that they're building it right now this offseason. I'm very excited by what Joe Schoen has done. I think he's done an excellent job. Our last video, we graded all of his moves so far this offseason. Alex and I both gave him pretty high grades across the board, so make sure you go over to that video, check it out, see what you think of our grades, and leave your grades in that comment section. And of course, on this video, let me know what you think of Jamil Douglas below. What are your thoughts on Nick Gates, his injury setback, and what that might mean for his future or for the future of the Giants offensive line? Would love to hear your comments down below. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, ring a bell so you don't miss a video, and leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Had a great one breaking it down for you guys, and I'm super excited to do again on the next episode of Fireside Giants. So please stay tuned, have a good one, and let's go Giants.